It was one of those evenings when the airport was buzzing with chaos, delayed flights, long queues, and exhausted travelers dragging their luggage with slouched shoulders and tired eyes, and amidst all of that noise, one young woman stood out not because of glamour or wealth but because of the quiet patience and kindness she carried in her expression. Her name was Alina, a hardworking university student who had saved for months just to buy a single plane ticket to attend an important internship. Interview that could change the course of her life, her future depending on this journey, as she believed that if she could only make it there on time, her dreams would finally begin to take shape. She clutched her ticket nervously while standing near the gate, her thoughts racing about what this opportunity meant, but just as the boarding announcement echoed across the hall, she noticed a man entering the gate area looking utterly drained, holding a little girl in his arms, her head resting on his shoulder as though she had cried herself to sleep, and his other hand dragging a bag that looked heavier than his body could handle. And the sight instantly pulled Alina's heartstrings because she knew the exhaustion of struggle, yet something about the man's worn suit, his tired but dignified posture, and his quiet desperation stirred a deep empathy inside her. The child stirred awake, rubbing her tiny fists against her eyes, whispering, "Daddy, are we too late?" And the father, his voice trembling yet calm, whispered back, "It seems so, my love, but Daddy will fix this somehow." But when the flight attendant at the counter shook her head firmly, saying the flight was overbooked and there was no way to get them on, Alina could hear the heaviness in his sigh, the kind that carried both guilt and helplessness, and without thinking twice, she stepped forward, her heart louder than her mind, telling the attendant, "He can have my ticket, let him take the child home." And the stunned father turned toward her, eyes widening in disbelief, his voice cracking as he said, "Miss, you don't understand, you can't just give away your chance. This flight must be important for you too." But Alina only smiled faintly, her eyes soft yet resolute, replying, "She needs to be home more than I need to be there right now, and I can find another way, maybe not today, but someday." "She can't," and with that, she handed her ticket over, the attendant hesitating before allowing the switch, and the little girl, sensing what had just happened, wrapped her small arms around Alina's leg with a whisper, "Thank you, miss," a sound so innocent it made Alina's eyes glisten with unshed tears. The father, too choked up to speak properly, managed to grasp her hand firmly, promising, "I don't know how to repay you, but I will never forget this kindness," before hurrying toward the gate with his daughter, leaving Alina standing there with nothing but her suitcase and a quiet emptiness, yet also a warmth in her chest, knowing she had done the right thing, though it had cost her dearly, because that ticket was everything she had worked for, and missing that interview meant losing her one shot at climbing out of the struggles she had lived her whole life. But even in her disappointment she whispered to herself, maybe fate has something else planned. Still unaware that the man she had just helped was not an ordinary father but a millionaire CEO who could change her life in ways she could never imagine. As she sat in the waiting area, too broke to afford another ticket and too weary to go back, memories of her childhood flickered, growing up with a single mother who juggled jobs just to put food on the table, watching her mother collapse into bed at night with blistered hands yet still smiling for her daughter, and it was that upbringing that had shaped Alina into someone who knew the value of sacrifice, who understood that kindness was not weakness but strength. Hours passed before she found herself wandering the city with no plan, her suitcase bumping against the cracks of the sidewalk, her heart heavy but her spirit refusing to break, and somewhere across the clouds in the airplane, the father she had helped sat quietly, staring at his daughter as she slept peacefully for the first time in days, and he whispered to himself, who was she? And why would anyone give up so much for a stranger? And in that moment he made a silent vow that he would find her again, no matter what it took, because a heart so pure deserved more than gratitude, it deserved a future where sacrifice was rewarded. What Alina did not know was that she had just crossed paths with Adam Sinclair, a reclusive billionaire CEO who owned one of the biggest multinational corporations in the country. But despite his wealth and power, he had been living through his own storm of pain, raising his daughter alone after losing his wife in a tragic accident, struggling to balance boardrooms and bedtime stories, and though the world knew him as untouchable, in that airport he was only a father desperate to get his child home, and the woman who stepped forward had touched not just his day but his very soul. As Alina tried to make calls for a cheaper flight, finding none, she ended up spending the night at the terminal, resting her head on her suitcase, whispering small prayers into the silence, unaware that fate was weaving her sacrifice into a destiny grander than she could fathom. And this is where her journey truly begins, where a simple act of kindness would turn into a story of love, redemption, and miracles. Dear viewers, if you are touched by Alina's courage and sacrifice, make sure you subscribe to this channel so you never miss what happens next, because in the upcoming chapter the truth about the tired father's real identity will shatter Alina's world and lead her into a path she never imagined, where sacrifice will meet destiny and kindness will find its greatest reward.